The Grand Council chamber stretched for miles in every direction, its crystal walls reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. Alien delegates from across the galaxy filled the massive space, their various forms creating a sea of colors and shapes that would have amazed any human observer. But Admiral Jack Collins was not amazed. He was nervous. Jack stood at the center of the chamber, his simple black uniform looking plain next to the elaborate costumes and natural displays of the other species. Behind him, a holographic projection showed the blueprints of Earth's first prototype warship. The ship looked rough and basic compared to the sleek vessels that surrounded them in the docking bays outside. This is what humanity offers to the galactic community? The voice came from Commander Vextar, a tall reptilian creature with scales that shifted between green and gold. His 4 eyes focused on projection with obvious disgust. A metal box with primitive engines? Laughter filled the chamber. High-pitched squeaks from the gas-based Neptali mixed with the deep rumbles of the rock-like Gorvins. Even the elegant crystallines made sounds that could only be described as amused. Jack felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice steady. The USS Liberty represents humanity's approach to space warfare. We believe in practical solutions that get the job done. Practical? Commander Vextar's scales turned a bright orange, which Jack had learned meant the alien found something hilarious. Your ship uses chemical rockets. Chemical? We stopped using such things when our species was still crawling in caves. More laughter echoed through the chamber. A floating jellyfish-like creature called out in its musical voice. Do they still use gunpowder too? Actually, yes, Jack replied, which only made the laughter louder. Captain Lisa Monroe stepped forward from her position behind the Admiral. She had been quiet during the entire presentation, watching the alien reactions with calm blue eyes. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her uniform bore the insignia of Earth's newest ship captain. Admiral, she said quietly, perhaps we should explain the weapon systems. Jack nodded and activated another part of the projection. The USS Liberty's internal structure appeared, showing massive guns, missile bays, and what looked like enormous metal rods stored in special compartments. These are kinetic weapons, Jack explained. They fire solid projectiles at very high speeds. The ship also carries nuclear missiles and electromagnetic railguns. The laughter stopped for a moment as the aliens studied the display. Then Commander Vextar began laughing even harder. Kinetic weapons? You mean you throw rocks at your enemies? His scales were now flashing between orange and red. This is the most primitive thing I have ever seen. Our plasma cannons can destroy entire cities with a single shot. Our energy shields can stop any physical attack. A new voice joined the conversation. It belonged to High Commander Zephylos, the supreme military leader of the Zeridian Empire. He was larger than Vextar, with darker scales and 6 eyes instead of 4. When he spoke, the entire chamber fell silent. Humans, he said, his voice carrying across the vast space without any electronic help. Your species amuses us. You come before the greatest military powers in the galaxy with toys that belong in a museum. Do you truly believe these ancient weapons could threaten anyone here? Jack felt Lisa tense beside him, but her voice remained calm when she spoke. High Commander, every weapon system on that ship has been tested extensively. We are confident in their effectiveness. Confident. Zephylos moved closer, his massive form casting a shadow over the 2 humans. Child, I have commanded fleets that have conquered 1,000 worlds. I have seen energy weapons that can crack planets and shields that can withstand the heat of stars. Your little metal projectiles would bounce off our armor like raindrops. The High Commander gestured to projection with one of his 4 arms. Look at this design. No energy shielding. No plasma weapons. No quantum torpedoes. You built a flying metal box filled with explosives. It is almost sad. Other alien leaders began voicing their opinions. A crystalline being that looked like living diamonds spoke in tones that sounded like wind chimes. Perhaps the humans need more time to develop proper technology. Give them a few thousand years, suggested a creature that resembled a giant spider made of silver metal. They might discover energy manipulation by then. Jack felt his face getting red, but Lisa placed a gentle hand on his arm. She stepped forward and looked directly at High Commander Zephos. "High Commander," she said, "would you be willing to test your theories against our ship?" The chamber fell completely silent. Even the background hum of the station systems seemed to quiet down. Zephos' 6 eyes all focused on the small human woman standing before him. "Are you challenging the Zeridian Empire to combat little human?" "I am suggesting a practical demonstration," Lisa replied. "You claim our weapons are useless against your technology. We claim they are effective. Only one way to find out for certain." Zephos was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that made the floor vibrate. Soon, every alien in the chamber was laughing again. "Very well," the High Commander said when the laughter died down. "The Zeridian Empire accepts your demonstration. We will send a small force to your home system. A few ships should be enough to prove our point without causing too much damage to your planet." "How generous of you," Lisa said, her voice still perfectly calm. Jack activated his communication device and spoke into it. "This is Admiral Collins to Earth Command. We need the USS Liberty prepared for immediate deployment. Full combat load." The voice that answered came through clearly enough for the aliens to hear. "Understood, Admiral. Captain Monroe's ship will be ready in 6 hours." Zephos' scales shifted to a pale blue color that Jack recognized as satisfaction. 6 hours? We can have a fleet at your system in 3. This will be over before your primitive ship can even leave its dock. "We will see," Lisa said simply. As the council session ended and the aliens began to disperse, Jack heard fragments of conversation in dozens of languages. Most of it was variations on the same theme: the crazy humans who thought they could fight with old weapons. Commander Vextar approached them as they prepared to leave. "Humans," he said, his scales now a deep purple that meant serious business, "I almost feel sorry for you. When this is over, perhaps the Zeridian Empire will allow your species to serve as laborers. Your primitive minds might be useful for simple tasks." Lisa looked at him for a moment, then smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Commander," she said, "you might want to update your insurance policies." As they walked away, Jack could hear Vextar explaining to another alien what insurance was and why the comment was supposedly funny. The laughter followed them all the way back to their shuttle. But Lisa was not laughing. She was thinking about tungsten rods, electromagnetic acceleration, and the look of surprise that would soon appear on some very arrogant alien faces. The emergency meeting room deep inside Earth's military headquarters buzzed with activity. General Pete Harrison sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by the planet's top military minds. His gray hair and weathered face showed the strain of recent events, but his eyes remained sharp and focused. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "Admiral Collins has sent us the complete recording of what happened at the Galactic Council. As you can see, we have a situation." The main screen showed footage from the alien council chamber. Everyone in the room watched as the aliens laughed at their technology, and High Commander Zephos accepted the challenge for a demonstration. When the recording ended, the room remained silent for several long moments. "Sir," said Colonel Ben Wright, a veteran of Earth's recent wars, "are we seriously going to fight aliens with one ship?" "That depends," General Harrison replied. "Dr. Carter, what is the status of the USS Liberty?" Dr. Amy Carter stood up from her seat near the middle of the table. She was younger than most of the officers present, but her reputation as Earth's leading weapons engineer earned her respect from everyone in the room. Her red hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her clothes showed the stains of recent work in the laboratories. "The ship is ready, General," she said, activating her own presentation. "All weapon systems have been tested and calibrated. The electromagnetic rail guns can fire tungsten projectiles at 12% of light speed. The nuclear missiles use our new guidance system that adapts to enemy movement patterns. And the kinetic bombardment system carries depleted uranium rods that can penetrate any known armor." "What about their energy shields?" asked Admiral Susan Parker, commander of Earth's Orbital Defense Fleet. Dr. Carter smiled. "That is exactly what I hoped they would have. Energy shields work by deflecting or absorbing energy-based attacks. They are designed to stop plasma bolts, laser beams, and particle weapons. But a physical object moving at high speed? That is a completely different problem. She changed her presentation to show a simulation. Imagine throwing a baseball at a soap bubble. The bubble might stop a beam of light, but the baseball will go right through like the bubble does not exist. General Harrison leaned forward. And you are confident this will work? Sir, we have tested our kinetic weapons against every type of defensive system we could build. Physical barriers work, but energy shields are useless against solid projectiles. The aliens have been using energy-based warfare for so long that they have probably forgotten how to defend against old-fashioned bullets. Captain Lisa Monroe entered the room at that moment, still wearing her dress uniform from the council meeting. Everyone turned to look at her as she took a seat near General Harrison. Captain, the general said, I understand you volunteered us for this demonstration. Yes, sir. The aliens were very clear about their opinions of our technology. I thought it was time to show them what human engineering can do. And your crew? Are they ready for combat against an unknown alien force? Lisa nodded. I have selected my officers, sir. Commander Rick Davis will serve as my tactical officer. He has more combat experience than anyone else in the fleet. Lieutenant Kate Wilson will handle communications and electronic warfare. Both are experienced veterans who understand what we are up against. General Harrison looked around the table. Opinions? Colonel Wright spoke first. Sir, this is incredibly risky. We are talking about one ship against an alien fleet. If we lose, interrupted Admiral Parker, then we were going to lose anyway. The aliens clearly do not respect us. This might be our only chance to prove that humanity can defend itself. I agree, said Dr. Carter. The Zeridians are arrogant. They think their advanced technology makes them invincible. That arrogance is their weakness. General Harrison was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Very well. Captain Monroe, you have authorization to engage the Zeridian force when they arrive. Dr. Carter, I want you to personally oversee the final weapon checks. Everyone else, prepare for the possibility that this demonstration might turn into a full-scale war. 2 hours later, Lisa stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty as it drifted in space near the Lunar Orbital Station. The ship was not beautiful by any standard. It looked exactly like what the aliens had called it, a flying metal box. But Lisa knew what was inside that box, and she was confident in her crew. Commander Rick Davis stood at the tactical station, his fingers dancing over the controls as he ran final checks on the weapon systems. He was a tall man with dark skin and calm eyes that had seen too much combat in Earth's recent conflicts. All weapon systems green, Captain, he reported. Rail guns loaded with tungsten penetrators. Missile tubes loaded with nuclear warheads. Kinetic bombardment system ready. Lieutenant Kate Wilson looked up from her communications console. She was a small woman with blonde hair and quick hands that could operate 3 different control systems at the same time. Captain, I am monitoring alien communications. Long-range sensors show 12 Zeridian ships approaching the outer edge of the solar system. Estimated arrival in 45 minutes. 12 ships, Lisa said quietly. They really do not think much of us. Should we request backup? Commander Davis asked. Lisa shook her head. This is our demonstration. We succeed or fail on our own. Dr. Carter's voice came over the ship's communication system from the weapons laboratory. Captain, I have finished the final adjustments to the railgun targeting system. The computers now have complete data on Zeridian's ship, designs based on the council recordings. We should be able to identify weak points in their hull structure. Excellent work, Doctor. Please join us on the bridge. A few minutes later, Dr. Carter emerged from the elevator wearing a simple jumpsuit and carrying a tablet computer. Her hair was now tied back properly, and she had cleaned the stains from her hands. Captain, she said, I want to explain something about what we are about to do. The aliens think we are primitive because we use kinetic weapons. But kinetic energy is the most basic force in the universe. When you drop a rock, it falls because of kinetic energy. When a meteor hits a planet, it makes a crater because of kinetic energy. It does not matter how advanced your technology is. If something heavy hits you hard enough, you get hurt. Lieutenant Wilson spoke up from her station. Dr. Carter, what if their shields can stop our projectiles? That is the beautiful part, Dr. Carter replied. Energy shields require enormous amounts of power to maintain. If they try to strengthen their shields enough to stop our tungsten rods, they will have to shut down other systems. Weapons, engines, life support, something has to give. And if they do not strengthen their shields... She smiled. Well, tungsten is very hard, and it does not care about alien technology. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Lisa looked around at her crew and felt a sense of pride. These were not the most advanced warriors in the galaxy. They did not have energy weapons or quantum shields. But they were human, and humans had a talent for finding practical solutions to impossible problems. Captain, Lieutenant Wilson announced, the Zeridian fleet has entered the solar system. They are broadcasting a message. Put it on speakers. The voice that filled the bridge was familiar. High Commander Zefto spoke in perfect English, his tone filled with amusement. Humans of Earth, this is High Commander Zeftos of the Zeridian Empire. We have arrived for your requested demonstration. Please present your warship so that we may conclude this matter quickly. We have other conquests to attend to today. Lisa activated the communication system. High Commander, this is Captain Lisa Monroe of the USS Liberty. We are ready to begin whenever you are. One ship? You are facing the might of the Zeridian Empire with one ship. One ship should be enough, Lisa replied calmly. The laughter that came through the speakers was loud enough to make Lieutenant Wilson wince and adjust the volume controls. Very well, Captain Monroe. Prepare to learn why the Zeridian Empire rules half the galaxy. The Zeridian fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel, like ghosts materializing in the darkness of space. 12 massive cruisers arranged themselves in a perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with an inner light that spoke of advanced energy systems. Each ship was nearly twice the size of the USS Liberty, and their surfaces rippled with a telltale shimmer of powerful defensive shields. War Captain Thexanael stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Dominator, and studied the primitive human vessel on his main screen. The alien had 4 arms and scales that shifted between silver and blue as his mood changed. Right now, they showed deep amusement mixed with professional interest. Scanning the human ship now, War Captain reported his sensor officer. Hull appears to be simple steel alloy with some kind of ceramic coating. No energy shielding detected. No plasma weapons. I am reading what appear to be chemical explosive devices. Chemical explosives? Thexanael's scales flash bright blue. Are they planning to ram us? Unknown, sir. The ship also carries several large-bore projectile weapons. Primitive railgun technology, possibly electromagnetic acceleration. Thexanael activated his communication system. Human vessel. This is War Captain Thexanael of the Zeridian Imperial Fleet. You have one opportunity to surrender peacefully. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. On the bridge of the USS Liberty, Captain Lisa Monroe listened to the alien's demands with a calm expression. Commander Rick Davis stood ready at his tactical station, while Lieutenant Kate Wilson monitored communications and censored data from her position. War Captain, Lisa replied, this is Captain Monroe. I must decline your generous offer. This is human space, and you are not welcome here. I suggest you leave immediately. The response from the Zeridian ship came in the form of laughter. Multiple alien voices joined in until the communication channel sounded like a party. Captain Monroe, Thexanael said when the laughter died down, your bravery is admirable but foolish. We will now demonstrate why the Zeridian Empire has never lost a space battle. The war captain gestured his weapons officer with 2 of his 4 arms. Target their engines with a low-power plasma burst. Let us disable them quickly so we can get this over with. Yes, sir. Firing plasma cannon at 15% power. A brilliant green beam lanced out from the Stellar Dominator's main weapon, crossing the distance between the ships in seconds. The energy strike hit the USS Liberty's rear section directly, engulfing the human ship in a ball of superheated plasma. Direct hit, reported the sensor officer. However, he paused, checking his instruments again. Sir, the human ship appears to be undamaged. Thexennial's scales shifted to a pale yellow color that indicated confusion. Undamaged? That is impossible. Increase power to 50% and fire again. The second plasma blast was much brighter than the first, and the explosion when it hit the Liberty was visible even to the naked eye. But when the energy dissipated, the human ship was still there, still intact, and still pointing its primitive weapons at the Zeridian fleet. War Captain, the sensor officer said nervously. The human ship shows some surface scoring, but no significant damage. Their hull appears to be designed specifically to resist energy weapons. On the Liberty's bridge, Dr. Amy Carter smiled as she watched the readouts from her armor plating. Captain, hull integrity at 96%. The reactive ceramic layer absorbed most of the plasma energy and dispersed it across the entire hull structure. How many more hits can we take? Lisa asked. At that power level? Probably 50 or 60. If they increase power significantly, maybe 20. But remember, Captain, every shot they fire at us uses up their energy reserves, and they still have to keep their shields running. Lieutenant Wilson looked up from her communication station. Captain, I am intercepting Zeridian fleet communications. They are confused and starting to get angry. Lisa nodded. Commander Davis, are we in range? Rick checked his tactical display. Yes, ma'am. Rail guns have clear targeting solutions on all 12 ships. Missile systems locked and ready. Then let us give them something to really think about. Fire rail gun one at the flagship shield generators. The USS Liberty's main rail gun was a massive electromagnetic accelerator that ran nearly the entire length of the ship. When it fired, there was no flash of light or dramatic explosion. Instead, a tungsten rod 6 feet long and weighing 200 pounds accelerated to 12% light speed in less than a second. The projectile crossed the space between the ships so fast that the Zeridian sensors barely detected it. It struck the Stellar Dominator's shield with the force of a small nuclear weapon. War Captain Thexennial was thrown to the floor as his ship shook violently. Emergency lights flashed across his bridge as damage reports flooded in from all sections. Report! He shouted as he pulled himself back to his feet. Sir, shield generators 3 and 4 are offline. The projectile, it went right through our shields like they were not there. That is impossible. Our shields can stop anything. Sir, the projectile was a solid object moving at extreme velocity. Our shields are designed to deflect energy, not physical matter. Thexennial's scales turned a dark red color that his crew had learned to fear. All ships, maximum power to weapons. Destroy that primitive vessel immediately. The Zeridian fleet opened fire with everything they had. 12 ships launched a coordinated barrage of plasma bolts, particle beams, and energy torpedoes. The space around the USS Liberty lit up like a small star as the alien weapons poured their fury into the human ship. But the Liberty had been designed by people who understood that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The hull plating absorbed energy, dispersed heat, and deflected what it could not absorb. The ship shook and rattled, but it held together. Hull integrity at 70%, Dr. Carter reported. Some sections are getting hot, but we are still in good shape. Their turn is over, Lisa said calmly. Commander Davis, full missile salvo. Target their weapon systems. The USS Liberty launched 24 nuclear missiles simultaneously. Each missile was guided by an artificial intelligence system that could adapt to enemy movements and defensive measures. As the Zeridian ships tried to shoot down the incoming weapons, the missiles split apart into smaller warheads that weaved between defensive fire. War Captain Thexennial watched in horror as the primitive human weapons approached his fleet. All ships, evasive maneuvers, activate point defense systems. But the human missiles were not like the energy weapons the Zeridians were used to fighting. These were solid objects that followed ballistic trajectories, and they exploded with nuclear fire that cared nothing about energy shields or advanced armor. The first missile hit the cruiser Noble Victory amidships. The nuclear explosion tore through the ship's hull like paper, and the vessel broke apart in a ball of flame. 2 more ships suffered direct hits, while several others were damaged by near misses. Sir, the sensor officer called out, the Thunder of Empire and the Star Crusher are gone. 3 more ships have significant damage. Thex and AL stare at the tactical display in disbelief. In less than 5 minutes, the human ship had destroyed or damaged half his fleet, using weapons that his military academy had taught him were obsolete. All ships, retreat to maximum engagement range, he ordered. We need to reassess the situation. On the Liberty's bridge, Lieutenant Wilson monitored the alien communications as the Zeridian fleet pulled back. Captain, they are requesting reinforcements from their home fleet, and they are scared. Lisa looked at the tactical display, showing the damaged alien ships. They should be scared. Dr. Carter, how are our weapon systems? Rail guns ready for continuous fire, Captain. Missile tubes reloaded, and we still have the kinetic bombardment system if things get really interesting. Commander Davis spoke up from his station. Captain, should we pursue? Lisa considered the question for a moment, then shook her head. No. Let them report back to their superiors. Let them explain how one primitive human ship destroyed half their fleet in a few minutes. She activated the communication system. War Captain Thexel, this is Captain Monroe. You have seen what human weapons can do. I suggest you leave our solar system immediately and do not return. The response came after a long pause. Thexenael's voice was no longer amused or confident. This is not over, human. The full might of the Zeridian Empire will come for you. We will be ready, Lisa replied simply, as the damaged Zeridian fleet limped away toward the edge of the solar system. Dr. Carter looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. Captain, I think we just changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Maybe, Lisa said, but something tells me this was just the beginning. War Captain Thexanael paced back and forth across his damaged bridge, his scales shifting between angry red and fearful purple. The remaining 7 ships of his fleet had pulled back to what they thought was a safe distance, but the human vessel continued to follow them with its primitive sensors locked onto their positions. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the humans are maintaining pursuit speed. They will be within their weapons' range again in 12 minutes. How is that possible? Their ship uses chemical rockets. Sir, analysis of their engine emissions suggests they are using some kind of fusion drive system. Primitive by our standards, but apparently effective. Thexaneo slammed one of his 4 fists against the wall. Contact the human ship. Perhaps we can negotiate a temporary ceasefire while we await reinforcements. On the USS Liberty, Lieutenant Kate Wilson received the incoming communication and looked at Captain Lisa Monroe with raised eyebrows. Captain, the Zeridian War Captain wants to talk. Put him through. Thexenael's image appeared on the main screen, and even the human crew could see that he was shaken. His scales had settled into a dull gray color that suggested deep concern. Captain Monroe, he began, I propose a temporary halt to hostilities. My fleet requires time to assess the tactical situation. War Captain, Lisa replied calmly, you came to our solar system with hostile intent. You fired on my ship without provocation. Now you want a timeout. Your weapons are not what we expected. Perhaps we can discuss terms. Commander Rick Davis interrupted from his tactical station. Captain, sensors show the Zeridian ships are trying to form a defensive formation. They are also charging their weapons again. Lisa's expression hardened. War Captain, I think this conversation is over. You have 30 seconds to leave our solar system, or we will resume our demonstration. 30 seconds? That is impossible. Our faster-than-light drives need at least 10 minutes to charge. Then you should have thought of that before you attacked us. Lisa cut the communication and turned to her crew. Commander Davis, what is our tactical situation? 7 enemy ships remaining, Captain. 3 are heavily damaged and showing reduced power levels. The other 4 appear to be at full combat readiness. They are spreading out to try to surround us. Dr. Carter, Lisa called a weapons engineer. What do you recommend? Dr. Amy Carter looked up from her technical station where she had been monitoring the weapon systems. Captain, their tactics are wrong for this kind of fight. They are treating us like an energy weapons ship that needs direct line of sight to engage targets. But our kinetic weapons work differently. Explain. Railgun projectiles follow ballistic trajectories. We can fire around obstacles, bounce shots off asteroids, even use gravity wells to curve our fire. And our missiles can change direction mid-flight to attack from unexpected angles. Lieutenant Wilson spoke up from her communications post. Captain, I am detecting new contact to the edge of the solar system. Long-range sensors show 24 more Zeridian ships approaching. Estimated arrival in 2 hours. Lisa considered this information for a moment. Commander Davis, it looks like we need to finish this quickly. Begin kinetic bombardment sequence. Yes, ma'am. Targeting the damaged ships first. The USS Liberty's kinetic bombardment system was Dr. Carter's masterpiece. Instead of firing single projectiles, it launched clusters of tungsten rods at slightly different velocities. The rods would separate in flight and strike their targets from multiple angles simultaneously. Commander Davis selected the most damaged Iridian cruiser and fired a full spread of kinetic penetrators. 20 tungsten rods, each weighing 50 pounds and moving at 10% of light speed, converged on an alien ship from different directions. The Zeridian vessel, the Crimson Thunder, tried to maneuver away from the incoming projectiles. But kinetic weapons do not care about evasive action once they are fired. The tungsten rods punched through the ship's hull like needles through cloth, and the Crimson Thunder exploded in a brilliant flash of released energy. Direct hit, Davis reported. Target destroyed. War Captain Theckenell watched his ship die and felt something he had never experienced in 20 years of military service. Genuine fear. All ships, emergency combat spread. Focus all fire on the human vessel. The remaining 6 Zeridian cruisers opened fire with everything they had, pouring plasma bolts and particle beams into the space around the USS Liberty. But the human ships seemed to dance between the energy weapons, using small course corrections to avoid the worst of the incoming fire. How are they doing that? Thexanael demanded. Sir, their ship is much smaller and more maneuverable than ours, and they seem to be predicting our firing solutions. On the Liberty's bridge, Lieutenant Wilson smiled as she monitored the alien communications. Captain, their targeting computers are designed for energy weapon duels at close range. They're having trouble calculating firing solutions for a target that keeps changing velocity. Good, Lisa replied. Commander Davis, let's give them something else to think about. Fire Railgun 2 at that cluster of 3 ships. The railgun fired a single tungsten penetrator at the group of Zeridian vessels. But instead of targeting one ship, Davis had aimed for a point in space where a projectile would pass close to all 3 ships. The tungsten rod streaked between the alien vessels at tremendous speed. As it passed the first ship, the gravitational field from the massive cruiser bent the projectile's path slightly, sending it directly into the second ship's engine section. The explosion that followed destroyed the second ship and sent debris flying into the third, damaging its shield generators. Impossible, Thexanael shouted. They're using gravity to aim their weapons. Dr. Carter nodded approvingly from her station. Captain, that was a perfect example of kinetic trajectory planning. The aliens have no defense against weapons that could be fired indirectly. Then let us continue the lesson. Commander Davis, missile salvo. Mixed nuclear and conventional warheads. The USS Liberty launched another wave of missiles, but this time the warheads were different. Half carried nuclear explosives, while the others contained thousands of small metal pellets designed to shred enemy armor. The missiles split into multiple warheads as they approached the Zeridian ships, creating a cloud of incoming destruction that was impossible to track. The alien point defense systems tried to shoot down the incoming weapons, but there were too many targets. Nuclear explosions lit up space as some missiles got through, while others detonated early and sent clouds of metal fragments into the enemy formation. 2 more Zeridian ships died in the barrage, their hulls torn apart by the combination of nuclear fire and high-velocity shrapnel. A third ship suffered critical damage and began drifting powerless through space. War Captain Thexanael found himself commanding only 2 functional ships out of the 12 he had started with. His scales had turned completely white, a color that indicated panic in his species. Sir, His communications officer said quietly, "The reinforcement fleet is asking for a status report." "Tell them." Thex NL paused, trying to find words to explain what had happened. "Tell them that human kinetic weapons are extremely effective against our defensive systems. Recommend immediate tactical revision of all fleet procedures." "Sir, should we retreat?" Thexanel looked at the tactical display, showing the human ship still pursuing his remaining vessels. The primitive vessel had destroyed 10 advanced Iridian cruisers in less than an hour, using weapons that his military academy had taught him were obsolete. "Yes," he said finally. "Signal all ships. Emergency retreat to the fleet rendezvous point." On the Liberty's bridge, Lisa watched the surviving Iridian ships begin their faster-than-light escape sequence. "Lieutenant Wilson, any final communications from the enemy?" "Yes, Captain. War Captain Thexanael is transmitting to his reinforcement fleet. He is warning them about our weapons' effectiveness." Lisa nodded. "Good. Let them think about what they have seen here." Dr. Carter, damage report. "Hull integrity at 62%, Captain. Some of our armor plating needs replacement, but all major systems are functional. Weapon systems are ready for continued action." Commander Davis looked up from his tactical station. "Captain, what about those 24 ships heading this way?" Lisa smiled. "Commander, I think it is time to show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate human engineering. Set course for the edge of the solar system. Let's go meet our new friends." As the USS Liberty turned toward the approaching Iridian reinforcement fleet, Dr. Carter made final adjustments to the weapon systems. The first battle had been a test of human kinetic weapons against alien energy defenses. The test had been successful. Now it was time for the real fight to begin. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened just 18 hours after the first battle in the human solar system. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the Great Chamber, their various forms creating a sea of confusion and concern. The massive crystal walls that normally reflected peaceful starlight now seemed to pulse with nervous energy. High Commander Zephos stood at the center of the chamber, his 6 eyes scanning the assembled delegates. His scales had lost their usual confident blue coloration, and now showed a dull gray that spoke of deep uncertainty. In his 4 hands, he held data tablets containing War Captain Thexenael's battle reports. "Fellow beings," he began, his voice lacking its usual commanding presence, "I must share disturbing news from the human sector. Our demonstration against Earth has not proceeded as expected." Commander Vextar, who had laughed so loudly at the human ship design just days before, now sat quietly in the front row. His scales flickered between green and yellow as he processed what he was hearing. "High Commander," called out the crystalline delegate, whose voice sounded like wind chimes. Surely a primitive species with chemical rockets could not pose a threat to Zeridian military might. Zephtos activated the holographic display system, showing the tactical recordings from the Stellar Dominator. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as the USS Liberty's tungsten projectiles tore through Zeridian shields and armor like they were made of paper. "Their kinetic weapons," Zephtos explained, "operate on principles we have forgotten. Physical projectiles moving at extreme velocities. Our energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and particle beams, are completely ineffective against solid matter." A spider-like delegate raised one of its 8 legs. "Surely this is a temporary setback? The Zeridian Empire commands hundreds of ships." "That is what we thought." Zephyrus replied grimly. "War Captain Thexanael departed with 12 advanced cruisers. Only 2 returned, and both are heavily damaged. 10 ships destroyed by a single human vessel." The chamber erupted in surprised voices, speaking dozens of different languages. The giant Gorvan delegates rumbled like earthquakes, while the gas-based Neptali squeaked in frequencies that hurt the ears of solid matter species. On Earth, news of the victory spread quickly through the human military command structure. Admiral Jack Collins stood in the Situation Room at headquarters, surrounded by monitors showing tactical data from the USS Liberty's engagement. General Pete Harrison paced back and forth behind the main conference table, his face showing a mixture of pride and concern. 10 alien ships," he said, shaking his head. 10 advanced alien ships destroyed by one of ours. Sir, said Colonel Benwright, the implications are staggering. If our kinetic weapons are this effective against their technology, we need to begin mass production immediately. Dr. Amy Carter entered the room at that moment, her red hair disheveled from hours of work in the laboratories. She carried a thick folder of technical specifications and wore the satisfied expression of an engineer whose theories had been proven correct. General, she said, setting the folder on the table, I have a complete analysis of the battle data. Our weapons performed even better than projected. The alien energy shields are not just ineffective against kinetic projectiles. They actually make their ships more vulnerable. Explain, Admiral Collins requested. Energy shields require enormous power to maintain, Dr. Carter said, opening her folder and spreading out technical diagrams. Power that has to come from the same reactors that run their engines and weapons. When they boost shield strength to try to stop our projectiles, they have to reduce power to other systems. General Harrison stopped pacing. Are you saying their advanced technology is actually a weakness? In this type of combat, yes, sir. They have become dependent on energy-based warfare. Their ships are designed around the assumption that battles are fought with plasma weapons and particle beams. They have no doctrine for dealing with kinetic attacks. Colonel Wright leaned forward to study the diagrams. Dr. Carter, how quickly can we build more ships like the USS Liberty? That depends on how many resources we allocate to the project. With full industrial support, we could have 12 Liberty-class ships operational within 6 months. But I have a better idea. She pulled out another set of plans showing a larger, more heavily armed vessel. The Liberty was our prototype. I have been working on designs for specialized kinetic warfare ships, heavier armor, more railguns, and a new missile system that can engage multiple targets simultaneously. Admiral Collins studied the new ship design. How does this compare to the Liberty? Twice the firepower, 3 times the armor protection, and the ability to carry our new kinetic bombardment platforms. One of these ships could probably handle 20 alien cruisers. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council chamber, High Commander Zephys was facing increasingly difficult questions from the assembled delegates. The jellyfish-like Aquari representative floated forward, its translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that indicated deep concern. High Commander, what are the implications for galactic security? If humans can defeat Zeridian forces so easily, what about the rest of us? The humans have issued no threats against other species. Zephys replied carefully. Their conflict appears to be specifically with the Zeridian Empire. Commander Vextar stood up, his scales now showing the deep purple of serious thought. High Commander, I must ask a difficult question. Could other species adopt human kinetic weapon technology? The chamber fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Energy-based warfare had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years. The idea of returning to kinetic weapons was almost unthinkable. That would require massive changes to ship design, tactics, and training. Zephys said, most of our species have forgotten how kinetic weapons work. A new voice joined the conversation. It belonged to Representative Krill of the Mandic Confederation, a species known for their tactical expertise. Perhaps that is the problem. We have become too specialized, too dependent on one type of technology. The humans retained knowledge that we discarded as primitive. The crystalline delegate chimed in agreement. The humans may have discovered something we lost in our rush to develop advanced technology. Sometimes the old ways are effective precisely because they are simple. Back on Earth, Captain Lisa Monroe stood on the observation deck of the Lunar Orbital Station, watching as construction crews worked around the clock to build more Liberty-class ships. The skeletal frameworks of 6 new vessels were already taking shape in the massive assembly bays. Commander Rick Davis joined her at the viewing window, his expression thoughtful. Captain, do you think we are ready for what comes next? What do you mean, Commander? The Zeridians will not give up after one defeat. They will adapt, bring more ships, develop new tactics. And other alien species will want to test our capabilities. Lisa nodded. You are right. This victory was just the beginning. But Dr. Carter's weapons work. Our crews are trained, and we have the industrial capacity to build more ships. If the galaxy wants to test human resolve, we will be ready. Lieutenant Kate Wilson's voice came over the station's communication system. Captain Monroe, Admiral Collins is requesting your presence in the strategy room. We have new intelligence about Zeridian fleet movements. As Lisa and Rick made their way to the strategy room, neither of them noticed a small observation craft that had been watching the human construction efforts from a safe distance. The ship belonged to the Mantic Confederation, and its crew was recording everything they saw. Representative Krill had decided that the Mantids needed to understand human kinetic weapon technology. If the balance of power in the galaxy was changing, his species wanted to be prepared. The age of energy weapon dominance was ending, and a new era of galactic warfare was about to begin. The question was not whether other species would adopt human tactics, but how quickly they could adapt before the next battle. In the depths of space, High Commander Zephyrus gathered the largest Zeridian fleet ever assembled. 200 ships of various classes prepared for what would either be a crushing victory or the beginning of the end for the Zeridian Empire. The humans had proven their weapons could destroy individual ships. Now it was time to test them against the full might of a galactic superpower. War was coming to the human solar system, and the entire galaxy would be watching. The largest military fleet in galactic history emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human solar system like a plague of metal locusts. 200 Zeridian warships of every class and configuration spread across space in a formation that stretched for millions of miles. At the center of this massive armada, High Commander Zephos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Galactic Dominator, and studied the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. Fleet status report, he commanded, his 6 eyes scanning the data feeds from across his armada. All ships operational and ready for combat, High Commander, reported Fleet Tactical Officer Quindar. 40 heavy cruisers, 80 standard cruisers, 60 destroyers, and 20 support vessels. This represents 60% of the Empire's total military strength. Zephos nodded, his scales showing the confident blue coloration that his crew knew meant he was pleased. Excellent. No matter how effective their primitive weapons, the humans cannot possibly stand against this force. Meanwhile, on Earth, emergency klaxons wailed throughout the military headquarters as Admiral Jack Collins rushed into main strategy room. General Pete Harrison was already there, along with a dozen other senior officers, all staring at the massive tactical display that showed the approaching alien fleet. 200 ships, Admiral Collins said quietly, studying the sensor readings. They are not taking any chances this time. Sir, said Colonel Benwright, our current fleet consists of 12 Liberty-class ships, including the original USS Liberty. Even with our weapons advantage, those odds are impossible, finished Admiral Susan Parker, commander of Earth's Orbital Defense Fleet. We need to evacuate the civilian population and prepare for a fighting retreat. General Harrison held up his hand for silence. Before we panic, let us see what Captain Monroe has to say. She has more experience fighting these aliens than anyone else. Captain Lisa Monroe entered the room at that moment, followed by Commander Rick Davis and Dr. Amy Carter. Lisa's calm expression contrasted sharply with the worried faces around the conference table. Captain, General Harrison said, you have seen the sensor reports. What is your assessment? Lisa activated the holographic display and began manipulating the tactical data. General, the Zeridians have made a classic mistake. They are fighting the last war instead of this war. Explain. Look at their formation, Lisa said, highlighting different sections of the alien fleet. They are arranged for traditional energy weapon combat. Closed formation flying, overlapping shield coverage, concentrated firepower. It is perfect for plasma cannon duels. Dr. Carter stepped forward, her red hair tied back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes bright with excitement. Captain Monroe is correct, General. This formation actually makes them more vulnerable to our kinetic weapons, not less. Commander Davis activated another part of the display. Sir, our tactical analysis shows that their tight formation limits their maneuverability. If we can force them to spread out, we can engage smaller groups individually. Admiral Collins frowned. But how do we force a fleet of 200 ships to do anything? We only have 12 ships. Lisa smiled, and for the first time since the meeting began, General Harrison saw confidence instead of concern in her expression. Admiral, We are going to use the one advantage we have that they cannot counter, which is the asteroid belt. 3 hours later, the human fleet moved into position among the asteroids between Mars and Jupiter. 12 Liberty-class ships took up positions throughout the rocky debris field, using the cover of the massive space rocks to hide their exact locations. Captain Lisa Monroe stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, now serving as fleet flagship, and coordinated the positioning of her ships. Each vessel was commanded by a veteran officer who understood the new tactics that Dr. Carter and her team had developed. Captain Rick Davis, now commanding the USS Defiance, reported his position from behind a particularly large asteroid. Liberty Actual, this is Defiance. We are in position at coordinates 77 Alpha. All weapon systems ready. Similar reports came in from the other 10 ships as they spread throughout the asteroid field. Each ship carried upgraded versions of the kinetic weapons that had proven so effective in the first battle, along with new missile systems designed specifically for fleet combat. Lieutenant Kate Wilson, serving as Admiral Monroe's tactical coordinator, monitored the approaching Zeridian fleet from her position at the communications console. Admiral, alien fleet will enter the asteroid belt in 30 minutes. They are maintaining their tight formation. Perfect, Lisa replied. Dr. Carter, are the new weapons ready? Dr. Carter looked up from her technical station with barely contained excitement. Admiral, the asteroid deflection system is online. We can now use the asteroids themselves as weapons. Explain for those of us who are not weapons engineers. Commander Davis's voice came through the communication system. We fire tungsten penetrators at specific asteroids, Dr. Carter explained. The kinetic impact sends the asteroids flying toward the enemy fleet at high velocity. Imagine being hit by a mountain moving at several miles per second. High Commander Zephos watched his fleet enter the asteroid field with professional interest. His tactical officers had identified the general area where the human ships were hiding, but the exact positions remained unclear. Deploy sensor drones throughout the field, he ordered. I want to know the precise location of every human vessel before we begin our attack. Yes, High Commander. Launching sensor drones now. Hundreds of small robotic probes spread out from the Zeridian fleet, scanning the asteroids for signs of human ships. But the Liberty-class vessels had been designed with stealth in mind, and their low-energy signatures made them difficult to detect among the natural radiation of the asteroid belt. Sir, reported Sensor Officer Dextal, we are detecting multiple contacts, but the asteroid field is interfering with our targeting systems. The humans appear to be using the asteroids as cover. Zephos' scales shifted to an annoyed orange color. Then we will blast the asteroids until we find them. All ships, prepare to begin bombardment of the asteroid field. On the Liberty's bridge, Lieutenant Wilson intercepted the Zeridian communications and smiled. Admiral, they are planning to bombard the entire asteroid field to flush us out. Let them, Lisa replied. Every shot they fire at empty space is energy they cannot use against our ships. And every time they fire, they give away their positions. The Zeridian fleet began its bombardment, sending thousands of plasma bolts and particle beams into the asteroid field. Massive rocks exploded in brilliant flashes of vaporized stone and metal, but the human ships remained hidden and undamaged. Now, Lisa commanded, all ships commence Operation Asteroid Storm. The 12 Liberty-class ships opened fire simultaneously, but instead of targeting the alien vessels directly, they aimed at specific asteroids throughout the field. Dr. Carter had calculated the trajectories perfectly, and the tungsten penetrators struck their targets with devastating accuracy. Dozens of asteroids, some as large as city blocks, suddenly changed course and began flying toward the Zeridian fleet at tremendous velocity. The aliens had seconds to react as mountains of rock and metal hurtled toward their tightly packed formation. Evasive maneuvers, Zephos shouted. All ships scatter. But the Zeridian formation was too tight and too large to maneuver quickly. The first asteroid, a chunk of iron and nickel size of a building, slammed into the destroyer's swift strike and crushed it like an empty can. More asteroids followed, creating chaos in the alien formation as ships tried desperately to avoid the incoming projectiles. Captain Davis watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the alien fleet scattered in panic. "Admiral, their formation is breaking up. They are spreading out exactly as we hoped." "Excellent," Lisa replied. "All ships, engage targets of opportunity. Remember, hit and run tactics. Do not let them concentrate their fire on any single ship." The Liberty-class ships emerged from their hiding places like wolves attacking a scattered herd. Moving quickly between the asteroids, they engaged isolated groups of Zeridian vessels with devastating kinetic barges before disappearing back into rocky cover. The USS Liberty itself targeted a group of 3 alien cruisers that had become separated from the main fleet. Lisa's rail guns fired a spread of tungsten penetrators that tore through the alien ship's armor, while her missile systems launched nuclear warheads that exploded among the enemy formation. "Direct hits on all 3 targets," reported the tactical officer. 2 ships destroyed, 1 heavily damaged. Similar reports came in from across the fleet as the human ships used their superior knowledge of kinetic warfare and asteroid belt navigation to devastating effect. The Zeridians, trained for energy weapon duels in open space, found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned in an environment where their technological advantages meant nothing. High Commander Zephyros watched his carefully planned formation dissolve into chaos as asteroid impacts and human attacks destroyed ship after ship. His scales had turned the pale white of panic as damage reports flooded his command center. "Sir," Fleet Tactical Officer Quindar reported, "we have lost 37 ships in the last 20 minutes. The humans are using the asteroid field perfectly. We cannot maintain formation, and our ships are being picked off individually." Zephyros stared at the tactical display, showing his scattered fleet. The largest military force in galactic history was being torn apart by 12 primitive human ships using rocks as weapons. "Order general retreat," he said quietly. "We will regroup at the edge of the system and reassess our tactics." But as the surviving Zeridian ships tried to withdraw from the asteroid belt, they discovered that the humans had one more surprise waiting for them. The surviving Zeridian ships fled to the asteroid belt in complete disarray, their tight military formation reduced to scattered groups of vessels desperately trying to reach the safety of open space. High Commander Zephyros watched from his flagship as another of his cruisers exploded under human kinetic fire, the destruction visible even through the interference of the asteroid field. "Sir," reported Fleet Tactical Officer Quindar, his voice strained with barely controlled panic, "we have lost 63 ships in the last hour. The humans are using tactics we have never encountered." Zephyros' scales had turned completely white, the color of absolute terror in his species. "How many ships are still operational?" 137, sir. "But many have suffered damage, and our formation integrity is completely gone." Captain Rick Davis, commanding the USS Defiance, moved his ship to the asteroid field like a hunter tracking wounded prey. His tactical officer had identified a group of 5 Zeridian destroyers trying to regroup near a large asteroid cluster. "Weapons officer," Davis commanded, "prepare kinetic swarm barrage. Target the lead destroyer." The Defiance launched a spread of smaller tungsten projectiles, each one programmed to follow a slightly different trajectory. Instead of firing directly at the alien ships, the projectiles ricocheted off nearby asteroids, creating unpredictable attack angles that the Zeridian defensive systems could not track. "Multiple impacts on target," reported the weapons officer. "Lead destroyer is breaking apart." The remaining 4 Zeridian ships tried to return fire, but their plasma weapons were designed for direct line combat. In the chaotic environment of the asteroid field, with human ships appearing and disappearing behind massive rocks, their targeting systems could not maintain locks on the fast-moving human vessels. On the bridge of the USS Liberty, Admiral Lisa Monroe coordinated the human fleet's attacks with the precision of a master strategist. Lieutenant Kate Wilson, now serving as Fleet Tactical Coordinator, monitored communications from all 12 ships while tracking the movements of the scattered alien fleet. "Admiral," Wilson reported, "Captain Rodriguez on the Guardian reports successful engagement with alien cruiser group. 3 ships destroyed, 2 damaged. Captain Smith on the Thunderbolt has eliminated an enemy destroyer squadron. All human ships report minimal damage." Lisa nodded as she studied the tactical display. The Zeridian fleet was not just retreating, it was collapsing. But she knew that letting them escape would only give them time to regroup and return with better tactics. Dr. Carter, she called the weapons engineer, how many asteroids can we redirect toward their escape routes? Dr. Carter looked up from her calculations with a smile that made several bridge officers nervous. Admiral, I have been working on something special. Instead of moving individual asteroids, we can create what I call a kinetic cascade. Explain. We target specific support points in the asteroid clusters along their escape route. When those asteroids are hit, they will trigger a chain reaction that brings down entire sections of the field. The aliens will have to fly through a storm of flying rocks. Commander Davis's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, the main Zeridian force is attempting to exit the asteroid belt to the primary navigation channel. If we're going to stop them, now is the time. Lisa made her decision quickly. Dr. Carter, initiate kinetic cascade sequence. All ships converge on the navigation channel. We end this here. The 12 Liberty-class ships moved through the asteroid field with a coordination that would have impressed even alien observers. Each captain knew their role in the plan, and their crews had trained extensively for this type of three-dimensional combat among the asteroids. Dr. Carter's kinetic cascade began as the human ships fired precisely aimed tungsten penetrators at key structural points in the asteroid clusters. The impacts were carefully calculated to create maximum disruption with minimum energy expenditure. High Commander Zephos watched in horror as sections of the asteroid field began collapsing toward the navigation channel. Massive rocks, some larger than his flagship, tumbled through space directly into the path of his retreating fleet. All ships, emergency acceleration, he commanded. We must clear the channel before the asteroids block our escape route. But the human plan was more sophisticated than simple area denial. As the Zeridian ships accelerated toward what they thought was safety, they found themselves flying directly into carefully prepared kill zones where the human fleet waited in ambush. Captain Davis positioned the Defiance behind a cluster of smaller asteroids near the channel exit. As the first group of alien ships approached, he activated his ship's new experimental weapon system. Weapons Officer deploys Scatter Shot Pattern 7. The Defiance launched what appeared to be a single large ejectile, but as it approached the alien formation, the projectile split into hundreds of smaller fragments. Each fragment was a guided mini-missile that could track individual targets and adjust its trajectory mid-flight. The lead Zeridian cruiser, the Stellar Conquest, found itself surrounded by a cloud of incoming projectiles that attacked from every direction simultaneously. Its energy shields, already weakened by the fighting in the asteroid field, collapsed under the concentrated kinetic impact. The ship's hull was shredded by dozens of high-velocity fragments and exploded in a brilliant flash of released energy. Similar attacks occurred throughout the navigation channel as the human fleet implemented what Dr. Carter had named kinetic swarm tactics. Instead of firing single powerful shots, the Liberty-class ships launched thousands of smaller projectiles that overwhelmed the alien defenses through sheer numbers and unpredictable movement patterns. Lieutenant Wilson monitored the battle communications from her position on the Liberty's bridge. Admiral, the alien fleet is breaking up. Individual ships are attempting to surrender. Tell them to power down weapons and prepare to be boarded, Lisa replied. But keep our weapons trained on them. This could be a trick. High Commander Zephos found himself commanding fewer than 90 ships from the 200 he had started with. His carefully planned invasion had become a rout, and the surviving vessels were scattered throughout the asteroid field with nowhere to run. Sir, Quindar reported quietly, the humans are offering terms to surrender. Zephos stared at the tactical display, showing the destruction of his fleet. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were now floating debris, destroyed by weapons the scientists had insisted were primitive and ineffective. What are their terms? Complete disarmament and withdrawal from human space. They also demand that we cease all hostile actions against Earth and recognize human territorial sovereignty. The High Commander scales shifted through several colors as he processed this information. The Zeridian Empire had never surrendered to anyone, but the alternative was a complete destruction of what remained of his fleet. Sir, the communications officer added, there is something else. The humans are broadcasting a message on all galactic frequencies. They want the entire galaxy to witness what happens here. On the Liberty's bridge, Admiral Monroe activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her voice would be heard not just by the Zeridian survivors, but by monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. High Commander Zephyrus, this is Admiral Lisa Monroe of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your invasion of our solar system has failed. Your energy-based weapons and traditional tactics are ineffective against human kinetic warfare technology. You have two choices: surrender unconditionally, or we will finish what you started. The response came after several long minutes of silence. Zephyrus's voice carried across space with a defeat that was audible even through the mechanical translation. Admiral Monroe, the Zeridian Empire, accepts your terms. We surrender. Throughout the galaxy, alien civilizations that had monitored the battle sat in stunned silence. The mighty Zeridian Empire, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, had been crushed by a species that most of them had considered primitive just days before. Dr. Carter looked at the tactical display, showing the scattered alien fleet, and smiled with satisfaction. Admiral, I think we just changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Perhaps, Lisa replied, but something tells me this is only the beginning. Word of this battle will spread. Other species will want to test our capabilities or form alliances with us. Lieutenant Wilson looked up from her communications console. Admiral, we are receiving messages from dozens of different species. The Mantic Confederation wants to discuss technology exchange. The Aquari Republic is requesting a defensive alliance, and the Crystalline Collective is asking if we would be interested in joining the Galactic Council as a military power. Lisa considered these offers while watching the Zeridian ships power down their weapons in surrender. Humanity had proven that it could defend itself against the galaxy's most powerful military force. Now it was time to decide what kind of role Earth wanted to play in galactic politics. Lieutenant, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need to prepare for a very different kind of future than we had planned. As the human fleet began the process of accepting the Zeridian surrender, none of them noticed a small observation craft that had recorded the entire battle. The ship belonged to Hive Collective, a mysterious species that had remained neutral in galactic politics for centuries. But the Hive had been watching the humans with great interest, and they had very different plans for the species that had just demonstrated the most effective military technology the galaxy had seen in millennia. 6 months after the battle in the asteroid belt, the galaxy had become a very different place. The news of humanity's crushing victory over the Zeridian Empire had spread to every inhabited system, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees fleeing the chaos that followed the Empire's collapse. Admiral Lisa Monroe stood on the observation deck of a newest human vessel, the USS Prometheus, and watched as Earth's expanded fleet conducted training exercises in the space around Jupiter. 47 Liberty-class ships now form the backbone of humanity's defense force, with more being constructed every month in the massive orbital shipyards that have been built to meet the galaxy's new reality. Admiral, Commander Rick Davis approached from behind, carrying a data tablet filled with the latest intelligence reports. He had been promoted to Fleet Operations Commander after his excellent performance during the asteroid battle. We have received responses to our ultimatum. Lisa turned from the viewing port to face him. The ultimatum had been simple. All remaining Zeridian military forces had 30 days to surrender their weapons and withdraw to their home system, or face the same fate as High Commander Zephyrus's invasion fleet. How many have complied? 87% of their remaining fleet has surrendered, ma'am. The holdouts are mostly isolated garrison forces in distant systems. They do not have the ships or supplies to pose a significant threat. Dr. Amy Carter joined the conversation, her red hair now showing streaks of gray from the stress of the past months. She had been working nonstop to develop new weapon systems and train other species in kinetic warfare technology. Several alien civilizations had requested technical assistance after witnessing the effectiveness of human weapons. Admiral, Dr. Carter said, the Mantic Confederation has completed their first kinetic warfare vessel using our specifications. Their test results show that their ship can achieve 94% of our combat effectiveness. And the other species? The crystalline collective is having some difficulties adapting the technology to their energy-based physiology, but they are making progress. The Aquari Republic has successfully built 3 ships and is requesting permission to join our next training exercise. Lieutenant Kate Wilson's voice came over the ship's communication system. Admiral Monroe, incoming priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Collins wants to speak with you immediately. Lisa made her way to the Secure Communications Center, where Admiral Jack Collins's image appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but satisfied, and his uniform now showed the insignia of Earth's first galactic ambassador. "Lisa," he began, "congratulations on the successful completion of the Zeridian surrender operations. General Harrison sends his regards and wants you to know that the President is very pleased with the fleet's performance." "Thank you, sir. What is our next assignment?" Collins's expression grew more serious. "That is what I need to discuss with you. We have received a formal request from the Galactic Council to intervene in a situation that has developed since the Zeridian collapse." He activated a star map showing a region of space that had once been part of the Zeridian Empire. The Hive Collective has been expanding into former Zeridian territory. They are not negotiating with local species or respecting established borders. Several independent worlds have requested our protection. Lisa studied the map with growing concern. The Hive Collective was one of the most mysterious species in the galaxy. They rarely communicated with other civilizations and had maintained strict neutrality for centuries. "Sir, what do we know about Hive military capabilities?" "Very little," Collins admitted. "They have never been involved in a major conflict. But our intelligence suggests they have been studying our kinetic warfare technology very closely. There are reports that they have developed countermeasures." Dr. Carter leaned forward to study the star map. "Admiral, if the Hive has been preparing for conflict with us, they would need to solve the fundamental problem of kinetic weapon defense. Energy shields do not work, but there are other possibilities, such as ablative armor designed to absorb kinetic impact, point defense systems that can intercept projectiles before they reach their targets. Or they might have developed something we have not thought of." Commander Davis frowned as he considered the implications. "Admiral, if the Hive has effective defenses against our weapons, we could be facing the same situation the Zeridians did when they underestimated us." Lisa nodded thoughtfully. "Admiral Collins, what are the Council's expectations for our response?" "They want Earth to serve as the galaxy's primary military power," Collins replied. "Several species have offered to contribute ships and resources to a joint fleet under human command. The Council believes that our kinetic warfare doctrine represents the future of galactic defense." "And if we decline?" Collins was quiet for a moment. "Lisa, declining is not really an option. Like it or not, we have become the dominant military force in this part of the galaxy. Every species that wants to remain independent is looking to us for protection. If we cannot defend them, they will either be conquered by aggressive powers like the Hive, or they will be forced ally with species that might not have their best interests at heart." Lisa understood the situation perfectly. Humanity had proven its military superiority, and with that superiority came responsibility. The galaxy was looking to Earth not just for protection, but for leadership. "Very well, Admiral. We will prepare for operations against the Hive Collective. But I want complete intelligence reports on their capabilities, and I want our research teams to develop contingency plans in case our current weapons prove ineffective." "Already in progress," Collins replied. "Dr. Carter, the research division on Earth has been working on next-generation kinetic systems based on your battle reports. They have some interesting ideas about adaptive projectiles and multi-stage kinetic platforms." After the communication ended, Lisa found herself back on the observation deck, watching the human fleet conduct its training exercises. The ships moved through space with a precision and confidence that would have amazed the alien delegates who had laughed at the USS Liberty just months before. "Admiral," Commander Davis joined her at the viewing port. "Do you think we are ready for this?" "Rick, 6 months ago we had one experimental ship and a lot of theories about kinetic warfare. Now we have a fleet, experienced crews, and allies throughout the galaxy. We have learned to adapt and overcome challenges that seemed impossible. But the Hive might be different. They have had time to prepare specifically for us. Lisa smiled, remembering the confidence she had felt when facing the Zeridian fleet in the asteroid belt. Then we will have to be better than they expect. Dr. Carter, what is the status of our new weapon systems? Dr. Carter looked up from her data tablet with the expression of someone who had been working on interesting problems. Admiral, I have been developing something I call adaptive kinetic munitions. Projectiles that can change their characteristics during flight based on target analysis. If the enemy has developed armor specifically designed to stop tungsten penetrators, we can switch to depleted uranium, diamond composite, or even exotic matter rounds. And if they have point defense systems, then we overwhelm them with numbers, use indirect fire patterns, or employ the new guided projectile swarms that can coordinate their own attacks. The beautiful thing about kinetic weapons, Admiral, is that they are fundamentally simple. There are limits to how much you can offend against a piece of matter moving very fast. Lieutenant Wilson's voice came over the communication system again. Admiral, incoming transmission from the Aquari Republic. They report that